Immigration is a major political issue in many countries. In Australia, the United States, and Great Britain, immigration is considered a major political issue. This is largely because the political right has nothing of substance to offer, so they fall back on fear-mongering and scapegoating. They demonize immigration to get the support they need to acquire power. Once they acquire power, they do nothing about immigration because ultimately immigration benefits their wealthy donors. In New Zealand, immigration is generally considered a relatively minor issue that most people don't really care about. Some people are predicting that immigration will in the coming years become a major political issue here, just as it has in other Anglosphere nations. And they may be right. Time will tell. Fear-mongering about immigration and open borders is a lot more difficult when your country is extremely isolated and has no land borders. In America, politicians conjure up terrifying images of legions of immigrants storming the southern border. No such images can be conjured up here, unless you are totally ignorant of basic geography. The immigration fear-mongering also constantly references the claim that immigration caused the collapse of Rome. This is a common narrative. The idea that immigration has caused the destruction of many great societies. Of course, New Zealand is a relatively insignificant and small country, so these grand narratives are a lot less compelling. This is no Fall of Rome situation. Having said that, I would never claim that immigration will never become a big political issue here. If a right-wing party jumps on the issue, it could become a big deal. This is probably unlikely. ACT and National both seem to quite like immigration. These parties favour neoliberalism and economic liberalisation, and large amounts of immigration are often part of that political agenda. New Zealand First has historically been hostile towards immigration. Winston Peters was once notorious for fear-mongering about Asian immigration. He claimed that there was an Asian invasion taking place. He claimed that soon Maori would be replaced by Asians. This rhetoric was never especially compelling. Asian immigrants often come from well-educated and economically prosperous backgrounds and have been a valuable addition to our society. They are not associated with criminality at all. So fear-mongering about them was never going to be particularly effective. Winston has not spent much time fear-mongering about immigration since the Christchurch mosque shooting. He has largely abandoned his previous love of anti-immigration rhetoric. This is not surprising. The mosque shooting exposed the hideous consequences of such rhetoric. In New Zealand, most immigrants come from Asia or the Pacific Islands. Immigrant populations are heavily concentrated in Auckland, which is the country's largest city. Auckland has a massive immigrant population. There is a great irony to fear-mongering about mass immigration in a settler society like this one. This country was founded on mass immigration. Masses of people immigrated to this country in a short period of time. This country was built on mass immigration. It is funny that these people who are fear-mongering about immigration will eagerly defend colonization, a very brutal form of mass immigration. They will fearmonger about a few Middle Eastern immigrants, and then they will turn around and argue that colonization and the mass immigration that defined it was a great thing. Of course, immigration is not inherently good or inherently bad, but some people are too stupid to understand that. They demonize mass immigration, all while defending colonization and settlement. Colonization and settlement was a form of mass immigration that devastated Maori society with deadly disease and extensive dispossession. Defending this while taking issue with a few brown immigrants is pretty ridiculous. But that is the political right for you. They are ridiculous. Of course, these apparent inconsistencies make a lot more sense when you remember that many opponents of immigration are not principled or consistent people. Many of them are just racist idiots. They pretend to be against mass immigration, yet they prefer white immigrants over indigenous Maori. It is my view that there are valid concerns about immigration, particularly those concerning integration and infrastructure. Integration is very important. Immigrants from vastly different cultures cannot be allowed to form enclaves. That is how you get a divided society. Social cohesion is a good thing. Unity is a good thing. That means common culture. There is room for diversity. Diverse food, diverse clothing, diverse holidays. But there should be a common language and some basic shared values. That is essential. That is essential to a functioning society. There is a place for limited multiculturalism, but certain values and traditions should never be welcomed here. Certain views and ideas should not be tolerated and accepted. Integration is important, and concerns about integration are valid. Immigration should be kept at levels where integration is possible. Integration should be encouraged. Concerns about infrastructure are also valid. New Zealand has crumbling infrastructure. Our most basic infrastructure, from pipes to power lines, is failing. We have a housing crisis. Our transport infrastructure is a joke. Mass immigration would apply more pressure to these things and make these issues worse. So we must take into account limitations imposed by infrastructure issues when designing our immigration policy. There are valid objections to immigration. The key point is that immigration is not inherently good or inherently bad. It all depends on how it is managed. Immigration has a lot to offer. Immigration can increase our population. With a bigger population, we can become a more powerful country. We can become a more powerful player on the world stage. We will be in a better position to pursue our interests as a society. A bigger population should be pursued. This can make us a more powerful player on the world stage rather than a forgotten little backwater. We will be stronger economically. Immigration is often very good for the economy. These benefits are not always equally shared, so we must ensure that wealth is redistributed so nobody misses out on the benefits. Immigration is part of the solution to declining birth rates. Increasingly small younger generations have to prop up larger generations of pensioners. Immigration can be part of the solution to this problem. Immigration makes it easier for people to move around. This makes people more free. A society that values liberty should place value on immigration, because immigration represents freedom of movement. I think freedom is a valuable thing. There is also the question of empathy. As beings who can suffer, an empathetic and compassionate society is in our interest. As beings who can suffer, a society that cares about human well-being is in our interest. This has implications for immigration policy. Many people face horrible conditions in other countries. We should not condemn these people to suffer and die. To the extent that we reasonably can, we should reach out a hand and help them. That means accepting immigrants who exist in harsh conditions in other countries. This is in the interest of everyone, because as a being who can suffer, a society that is opposed to suffering is in your interest. A humane society is in the interest of all who can suffer. This should not be forgotten. Many people claim that immigrants bring crime. Often this is not true. There are many instances of immigrant populations having lower crime rates than the citizenry. In the USA, illegal immigrants have a lower crime rate than US citizens. So the crime rate narrative is usually built on lies and anecdotes. Lies and anecdotes pushed by idiots who have nothing to offer other than childish fear and mindless hatred. Immigration is a complex issue. We should be wary, we should proceed with caution on this issue. There are valid concerns about integration and infrastructure. There are invalid concerns about race. Invalid concerns from idiots who are driven by hysterical prejudice and emotional disdain.